Hello and welcome to this live stream. Please do say hello in the chat box and tell me where you are joining from. I just need to pull up some links that might be needed later on. So hang out while you're getting situated and comfortable. Maybe get a glass of wine. Say hello in the chat box. Let me pull up. It's two by you. Oh no. It will be recorded. It's going to be on my YouTube page, but I don't know how long I'm going to keep it up. So I just posted some links, important links, things that we're going to talk about today. What's BRA? Is that Brazil, Linda? Bra. Help me out. BRA. Hello, Missouri. Welcome. Hi, guys. Welcome to this live stream. It's 7 o'clock. We're just at the top of the hour. Please do tell me where you're joining from. Thank you, Goldie, for hanging in the middle of the night, wherever you're joining from. It's true. It's 2 o'clock. My goodness. BRA. Linda, Brazil? Bruh. How am I? Hi from Bruh. BRA. It's got to be Brazil, right? Please tell me where that is. Oh, Bradenton? Wait, hold on. Linda, in Bradenton, not Brazil. Well, welcome. Hello, Tracy in Canada. Awesome. Thank you for joining, folks, on this Thursday. It's evening where I am. I'm in New York. Excited to be here. I haven't done this live stream in a while. And it's one of my favorites because it talks about learning how to improve upon your miniatures collection. This could be for anybody who, really could be for anybody at any place in their mini journey. It could be for really at all levels, because you can learn something you can take away from this. But I want to say thank you for joining. And if you are just joining, please do say hello in the comments or in the chat box and tell me where you're joining from. Maybe if you don't mind, if you like chatting in the comments, tell me what you want to get out of this and maybe where you are in your miniature journey. Where are you? Meaning, how long have you been collecting? What does stepping up your mini game mean to you? Because that's going to be different for everybody. But before we begin with the live stream, I do want to take you through what is going on in other kind of mini news from where I am. If you guys don't know me, I'm going to introduce myself in the live stream a little bit more, but I host a Meet the Miniaturist podcast on YouTube. I do live streams as well. Sometimes I do them and I edit them and I post them. Sometimes I do them live. There's kind of no rhyme or reason there. But check those out. I just had a chance to chat with Kay Browning. She's going to be in my presentation as well, but I just had her on. She has probably one of the most extraordinary miniatures collections on the planet. Got to chat with her. She's got a new book out. Got to hear a lot of her stories. So do check that out. Again, I just posted all of the links in the comments. If you can't see them, please tell me, because I do that all the time, but I don't hear any feedback. So that means that it's working. So tell me if it's not. I want to just check out what people are saying. Knowledge, because I'm so hooked on minis. Angela, I get it. And knowledge is important. So I'm happy to share whatever knowledge I have. And I hope it catches on. I'm going to talk a little bit about why that's important to me. Again, keep populating the comments. Tell me where you're joining from as I continue to talk a little bit about what's happening in my neck of the woods. I also got to chat with Andrea Stark. She's got a beautiful collection. She's located on the West Coast. She has a beautiful French chateau, which was built by Robert Dawson. He's a UK miniaturist builder. They worked together on this partnership. Hi, Marcella. Good to see you. Hey, Iowa. Great to see you, Colleen. She has a beautiful collection. I got to chat with both of them. whoosh, just so much great learnings there. And also, finally, just in terms of the most recent Meet the Miniaturist, Taylor Laufensweiler from House of Viridian. I would call him an up and coming miniaturist. He's got a growing following. He's super creative, super talented, super generous in sharing his knowledge and tips and tricks. He's got a YouTube channel. I would check him out. And then finally, I just got to talk with Kate Lee. She's a brand newly presented with Guild IGMA Artisan member credentialing, meaning she's super talented. Got to chat with her. She's my most recent, I didn't get to update this slide. She's my most recent Meet the Miniaturist, and she does beautiful paintings, masterwork in miniature, and she's just starting out, which is a big part of our conversation. She's only been doing this for a few years. She's kind of like a savant, I would say. No training, no art school. I love those stories that people just are super talented. All right, so let me go back to the comments. Hey, Arizona. Lori, I know you. Good to see you. Foxhall Manor, difficulty making them, so I collect them instead. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing you're saying, Tracy, which is, we start in one place and then we go to another place. I think that is true. And so at the end of the day, you got to do what makes you most happy. So it's interesting you're saying I started out there. I want to think a little bit more about that concept, because I think that happens a lot more than we think. And I wonder what that brings up for people. Good things, bad things. I'm going to screenshot that, because I think that's some really interesting insight. If you don't mind, I just screenshotted your comment. That's really interesting insight, I think, that we can tap into to just improve our overall experience in this mini world of ours. And then, okay, so those are the Meet the Miniaturist, the most recent Meet the Miniaturist. I do sell miniatures. I have an estate sale happening right now. It's called Fancy and Fabulous. It is a Midwest miniaturist collector looking to downsize. And she just has a beautiful eye for miniatures, and she's wonderful to share them with us so that we can have so that other people can enjoy them. So it's a lot of fashion and accessories, some really high-end handmade furniture pieces, furniture, pottery. So check that out. Again, link in the bio. And wow, we're running late on this little intro. I'm sorry. Okay, so and then finally, like I said, I didn't say, but I do sell miniatures. And if you're looking to downsize, or if you have a collection to sell on behalf of someone else, a friend, a family member, do reach out, because most of my business is centered around reselling miniatures. And I do that. I promote miniatures. That's what I'm doing here today. But most of what I do in terms of my business is reselling. So if you're looking to downsize, again, plopped that in. I plopped all of the important links in the comment section. So with that, I'm sorry, that took me 7 minutes. I like to get in and out with that. All right, so let's go right to what we're here to talk about today. So today we're going to talk about how to build an awesome miniatures collection. So like I said, a lot of what I do is centered around selling, but I like to promote miniatures every chance I get. But in terms of the selling piece, most of what I sell, it would be considered fine art miniatures, and what I also call high quality dollhouse miniatures. They may be manufactured or commercial in nature, but they're high quality. They're well made. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we talk about building a miniatures collection. But this whole live stream podcast webinar is really about how to look at miniatures so that you can step up your mini game and get better with the miniatures that you buy, the miniatures that you have, overall to improve your experience, and to a great degree to improve the value of your miniatures. But I don't like to sort of focus on that with people. I just want people to enjoy their miniatures collection. I mean, I guess there are people who are like, oh, I want to have the most expensive miniatures. just enjoy this. And that's what this is about. It's about how to see miniatures in a different way, to step up your collecting game, to improve your collections, ultimately to improve your happiness. And whatever that means to you, if that means having a higher value miniatures collection, this will get you there. But I'm all about being happy. Anyway, do you guys have any questions before I move on and maybe go through the agenda? So what we're going to talk about is miniatures today. I will do a brief intro about who I am, but I'm also going to sort of ground us in the history of miniatures, just so we all know what we're sort of talking about, where miniatures started, how we got here today. Then, of course, I'm going to just share uh, inspirational and aspirational miniature collections. More so on the inspirational versus aspirational, because some of these that I'm going to share are probably the best in the world, and there are very few of those around. So I want this to be inspiration, not necessarily something we're going to get to. Most of us do not. Why do we collect? Let's answer some of those questions. There might be some easy answers, just because. And then the meat and potatoes of this is going to be what makes a fine miniature, which is all about stepping up your game, is looking at fine art miniatures, high quality miniatures. That is what builds an awesome miniatures collection. And where do you get them? I'll go through that. So I'll give you some ideas on where to find them. You may already know this, but maybe it's a refresher. What defines a good collection? I'll go into that. And then we'll talk a little bit about, well, that's all nice information. What do I do with it? What do I do moving forward? So let me go back to the comments. Again, I'd love to know where you guys are at in your mini journey. Colleen wants to learn where to go online to buy good pieces. Interesting dollhouses. Yes, please do stop me at any point. I will try to monitor the chat, the comments. We're a very small group, so this could be very super casual. Ask questions, stop me, that kind of thing. I'll have a wrap up, but please do stop me. We're a small group. A little bit about me. I've always loved miniatures. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was my biggest sort of inspiration. I don't know how many people here go back that far, are that of that age. But he used to, there was this land of make-believe, and he would travel there through the little trolley. It wasn't necessarily the land of make-believe that got me hooked on miniatures, but there were some shows that he would start, and he would go into his kitchen, and on his kitchen shelves, he had several of the models, smaller representation of the structures that held the puppets in the land of make-believe. I don't even know how to say neighborhood of make-believe. Anyway, he would come and he would bring those structures down from the shelves and place them on the table. And he would talk about how we're going to go to the land of make-believe. It was the tree house. It was the castle. That's what got me. And I think how he handled the tree house, and those were sort of the triggers. How I handle a miniature chair today kind of brings me back there. Anyway, life happened. I studied marketing. I had a marketing career for a long time, and then it stopped. And then about 10 years ago, I opened up my own business, and I've had my own business for about 10 years now. I had a retail shop for a short period of time in Hastings on Hudson here in Westchester County, where I live. But now I sell exclusively online, and I also promote every chance I get. And I talked a little bit about my Meet the Miniaturist podcast, and I also do what I call Miniversity, which is just more of Meet the Miniaturist, but with a training sort of view, view towards teaching tips and techniques more specifically. I haven't done a lot of those lately. I gotta start doing those again. Jenny, how do you clean miniatures? Please ask me that again. I would like to answer that question. I also I give talks about miniatures every chance I get. This is a recent talk I gave at the Hudson River Museum in Yonkers, New York, also where I live. They have a fabulous dollhouse on Permanent View. I got to chat with the docents there. I was doing docent training for them. But I sell miniatures and promote miniatures, and that's probably the biggest piece of what I do. But, miniatures, the last 10 years, I would say miniatures have really been blowing out in terms of popularity, and they're definitely on the upswing. And I think one of the biggest one of the biggest like ways I can only describe the relevance of that is that 10 years ago, hi Goldie from Israel, good to see you. 10 years ago, maybe a few 12 years ago, give or take, you might have gotten a question from somebody, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm into miniatures. And people would automatically talk and say, oh, you play with dolls, and they didn't really get what miniatures were. We're in a place now, oh my goodness, the evolution of it all is that we're at a place now where you don't have to explain that. And please tell me if you agree. You don't have to explain to as many people, especially the young people, what miniatures are. They don't necessarily go automatically to dolls and playthings. They know it's tiny things, and they don't discount it like I think they might have done 15 years ago. So I don't know if you agree. I would love to know what you think. All right. So miniatures are definitely on the upswing in popularity. There are more people involved in the miniatures world. There's a lot more happening, and that's a great thing. But let's ground ourselves a little bit. Miniatures have been around forever, but it wasn't until the cabinet house and during the Renaissance era became popular. These were extravagant, um, you know, cabinets filled with handmade miniatures. This is an example of Portinella's cabinet house in Amsterdam from the 1600s. It's a beautifully maintained cabinet house, or they also called them baby houses, at the Rijksmuseum in the Netherlands. So that's kind of where it all started in terms of what we think of when we think of miniatures during the Renaissance era. They weren't necessarily scaled like we see them today. There were no rules around scale necessarily back then, but they were small objects. They were handmade. They were pretty pricey, and they were beautiful. And they were not playthings. They were meant for show, just like you would imagine a really great collection would be today. You wouldn't let kids play with it. So that's kind of grounds us in where miniatures evolved from to today. We see dollhouses, we see the kit, we see miniatures being available to, I would say, the masses, but there's always been that niche of high-end miniatures availability to folks who wanted to create collections around. So miniatures have evolved. It is definitely a mass idea, but we still do appreciate, and there's still a group of us that love sort of fine art miniatures and really, really high quality miniatures. So, like I said, I want to share a few of the collections, some of the finest collections that are out there. And again, this is really just to give you a little inspo, not necessarily aspo, if I'm making that sound right. I think the modern miniatures movement, if you will, the modern miniatures fine art movement started I guess, the to this niche audience started with Narcissa Nee Blackthorne. She was a socialite in the Chicago region. She started the Thorn Rooms. How many of you know about the Thorn Rooms? 68 rooms filled with the most beautiful, stunning images, stunning room boxes, architecturally accurate boxes that are displayed at the Chicago Art Institute. So that I think these are probably amongst the finest miniature collections pieces in the world. There were 100 of them. There's 68 of them in Chicago. There's a few of them in Phoenix. So yeah, if you haven't seen them, this should be on your list. If you love miniatures, check that out. Kay Browning, I mentioned Kay Browning. She has a wonderful museum in Maysville, Kentucky, filled with her treasures, which all have stories that are surrounding these miniatures, that are stories from her life, stories about her love of miniatures. She's a very generous miniaturist, and she really does support the miniature arts And then I think finally, and there are others, trust me, there are others, but this is Queen Mary's Doll's House. Probably one of the finest examples of fine art miniatures in the world, built in the early 1900s, and just stunning, stunning, stunning. But a big question that maybe some people have, and honestly, at the end of the day, it really doesn't necessarily matter. Why do we collect? I mean, there could be some like psychological reasons. Oops, hold on. There could be like some psychological reasons. Um, in the early days in the Renaissance era, it was all about showing off to your friends. So it was really a matter of like impressing people. Some people talk about the psychology of miniatures. The tapping into, it taps into, our growing up and our childhoods. Some people think about the hunt and the discovery of miniatures. Miniatures are, great ways to learn about things. The Thorn Rooms were all about learning about architecture and design. So there's also the social aspect. And I think probably that's, for me personally, that's one of the greatest aspects, is that this is such a social category of hobby. And I think that's born out of a need, because there's not that many of us. And so we all got to kind of have to stick together to learn from each other and to learn what's happening, where to find stuff, that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I think why do we collect is because it brings us joy. And that's probably the most important reason. I'm going to come back to this a lot. It's all about the joy. The most important piece is the joy. So any questions before I move on? Thank you for populating the comment section. I'm in New York, Linda. I'm in the Westchester County area. How do you clean miniatures? I'm going to go back to that. Just first go to content, share on eBay, and wonder how to clean it. I mean, I think in general, get a makeup brush and dust. That is the best way. Wood you can clean with water, but not a lot. So I would never like try to clean fabric. But in general, I think a good makeup brush is your friend. So use that. Okay, so let us continue. I think when you're thinking about building a collection, a good collection, you have to understand what the categories are that are most created, that are most available, and most accessible to us, as we collect. I mean, you could choose the more popular categories. You can choose less popular categories. The work to get the less popular categories will be greater. At the end of the day, I guess it's all a challenge to find what exactly you're looking for. But it's important to sort of know what's out there. Pottery is probably it's a significant category, and there are a lot of makers who are making beautiful pottery and porcelain pieces. Furniture is probably one of the biggest categories, I guess. I'm not sure. I've never really measured it, but accessories, just everyday accessories, is probably a big category, if you will, in the mini world. Fashion and accessories. You have painting and portraiture. In all different styles, from the masters to, I'm seeing a lot more modern lately, which is kind of great, just to see a little bit of a balance. And like back to fashion and accessories, you have a lot of folks who are making clothing and food, and clothing and bags, and fabric and textiles, things like knit items. This is actually a piece by Julie Steiner from Ridiculously Tiny Things. She's immensely talented, and I love her work. Glassware, beautiful hand-blown glass, fruits, flowers, handmade pieces from nature. This is Gosia Sachadalska from Poland. She makes the most beautiful roses. She also does food. She also does meat, but this is from Kim Fairchild. Food is probably the biggest category. I don't know. I have to think about this one. But there's some amazing food makers out there. And so when thinking about what you're going to collect, these are kind of the things that you should think about. What are the different categories? What are you drawn towards? What is it that is calling out to you? So these are some of the more other categories that you might think about or consider, especially when you're shopping and you're building a collection. I happen to be really into, gosh, I don't know. Yeah, I'm into a whole bunch of different things. I'm into blue and white right now. That's my big thing. I'm on the big hunt for like the Delft stuff and blue and white porcelain and pottery. But what do you personally that was that question came before me. So personally, I love the thank you for that question, Jenny. I love the Georgian period, Georgian style furniture and all of the stuff that goes with it. Except, in fact, this box behind me is my Georgian room box. And so I look for sort of pieces like that. I love a lot of wood, wood furniture. I talked a little bit of porcelain. So that kind of era, that time period. But thank you for that question. Oh no, I still have to explain. It's not as popular here. Tracy, really? Um, I mean, I think it's both. It's both a matter of popularity and I think you're right. It's about popularity. That is really going to drive what people think and understand about miniatures for sure. But let's talk about what makes a fine miniature. Some of the things about think about when stepping up your mini game is and looking at miniatures is considering how they might be made. What are the materials that are being used? How is something made? What is the scale? Is it an appropriate scale? Does it does it mirror the counterpart of its full size object? Do the materials that are being used to make them coincide with its full scale uh, complementary product? So this is an example of I call it a comfy chair, but it's a tufted leather chair with brass or brass tacks that are surrounding the roll arm um, uh, arms. This is a great example of a fine art miniature because it uses traditional methods to make. So tacking in each of those tacks individually, using the right materials. It's real leather. The scaling is perfect. The proportions are great. The coloring is great. Love this piece so much. So these are the kind of things you want to think about when thinking about a really, really good collection. So this is a sterling silver tea set, real sterling silver. Again, it mirrors its full size counterpart in scope and scale and proportions. Those are ebony handles, real ebony handles, which I don't know the name of this specific design and set, but the full size would have been made with an ebony handle. When we're talking about hand painted, when we're talking about painted pieces, this is a commode that is hand painted. This is a Natasha Beshenkovsky piece. Beautiful, beautiful hand painted design, which is back to sort of how something is made. This was made by hand. That is a really, really important thing. I know it's kind of pedestrian, but that's important. We're not talking about mass manufactured items. This is a hand blown crystal glass decanter. It's made using a traditional method of heat, fire, spinning, uh, not necessarily glass blowing. I don't know. I haven't seen this full video. I have to see. But I think this uses most traditional methods for sure. Again, back to sort of hand painted. This is another Natasha piece, which I love. Um, Materials, building process, details are important. I also think about the technical skills that are necessary to make some of these fine art pieces, and think about the skill level of the artist who makes the piece is important when thinking about a fine art miniature. I forget who made this piece. I think it's Miyuki out of Japan. I'm not 100% sure, but it's probably one of the finest pieces of porcelain I've ever seen in miniature. So those are sort of the things to think about. Yeah, like I said, this was an artisan made, of course. What is the artist's credentialing? Where did they study? Not that this is the only thing, but those are sort of things that build up to when looking at a piece. all the things I just talked about, technical skills, where was it made, when was it made, how was it made. This is an example of I believe it's a spinet, but it's hand painted. This is a piece that's actually in the National Museum of Toy and Miniatures. It's by Johannes Landmann. Oh, he's an amazing artist. This is uh, a hardwood extending table by Rohit out of India. And so this table expands. It's made of hardwood with all hardwood leaves. You can't see them. They're all often they're off the picture. You can't see them. But once that's extended and expanded, the hardwood leaves get placed inside, and there's an entire mechanism that was created, made of metal. I think it's by metal brass, that allows this table to expand effortlessly. This used to be a video, but this presentation got too heavy and I had to eliminate. But I have this somewhere on my Instagram. You can go check it out. How this actually works. It just will blow your mind. But they're important pieces. And then talking about details, if you will. If you're talking about a piece of furniture, if you look really hard at this drawer, I can't say drawer because I'm from Brooklyn, you will see that there are traditional dovetails being used to construct this drawer. Those are little details, how something was made using traditional methods that makes this drawer, which is part of a bigger sideboard by Walter Schuter, that makes it just amazing. That's not to say that, if a cabinet does not have, uh, uh, you know, dovetail joinery, it's not a fine art miniature. This is just a whole nother level to make sure to make it that much better. This is an example of real copper most of this is from Jay Gitsan. They're amazing miniaturists out of Chicago. So that will lead us to, let's go here. That will lead us to, where are the best places to find miniatures, really, really high quality fine art miniatures. Shows, I would say, is a great way. Not only the Guild Show, the Chicago Show, the Philadelphia Show. I think those are probably some of the best. Good Sam is coming up this weekend, I think. I don't know if anybody's on here is going to Good Sam. You want to check that out. That's in California. So definitely the miniature shows are going to be some of the best ways to find really, really good miniatures. And one of the reasons is that's where you're going to find the artisans that don't necessarily have these huge businesses that they have to churn and sell. They make miniatures, really, really great miniatures. They show 3 or 4 times a year. They have their audiences, and that's where you need to go and find. And once you find your miniatures and you've found your artists and you start going to the shows and start knowing what you love, this is where you're going to find them. So check that out. This is actually the London Kensington Miniature Show, which is also one of the best shows on that side of the pond, if you will. But definitely shows are going to be a great way to find good miniatures. Auctions, traditional auction houses, whether it's live auctioneers or there's one other live auctioneers. There's another one. eBay. eBay is where I sell mostly. I love eBay. It's a very, very safe place to buy miniatures. There are very good miniatures and good sellers who are showing on eBay. It's a great place to find miniatures. Etsy, too, to some degree, you can find good miniatures there as well. You tend to find more of the handmade stuff. That's not to say you won't find good stuff, but I think you got to dig a little deeper on with Etsy to find good miniatures. If you're willing to work really hard, you can always try and find miniatures at garage sales, to a lesser degree. And then finally, magazines. You're not finding a lot of them around much anymore, and because we have social media, but they're still out there. And if you want to find hard copies and you want to dig around there, you can find learn about new miniaturists, find good miniatures, and find who's making really good miniatures. Um, and but I think ultimately there's no better way than in person, and going to the shows and just meeting the artists and seeing the pieces in person. It's one thing to look online and buy online. Nothing beats meeting the artist, talking to the artist, understanding their process, seeing their work in person, picking it up if they let you. I'm always afraid to pick up miniatures at shows. I'm sorry. I'm afraid. But maybe they'll let you or they'll show you. uh, but that's just, I think, the best way to find really, really good miniatures. All right. Okay, so what else? Let me refer to my notes. Best places to find high quality miniatures. Talked a little bit about the online locations. That's one way. The shows. That's another way. And then when you think about, uh, you know, what's a good collection? At the end of the day, whatever makes you happy is a good collection. But there are some things that will help guide you to define that. Um, and oh wait, I wanted to go back to what defines a good show. Let me go back and talk a little bit about the shows because there are important things to note. I talked about what are some of the good shows: Chicago, Philadelphia, Good Sam, London, Guild Show. What defines a good show? I talked a little bit about all the artists that go, and that is that that's what you're going to want to do when you're looking for good miniatures, is find the good artists. But what defines a good show? What makes it worth your time to go and visit these shows? Number one is the number of really, really high quality artists that are showing at the shows. Where is the show, of course, is important. How easy it is to get there. What are the accommodations? Um, Another good way to judge a show is the number of international artists. I think Chicago has probably the highest number of of international artists. And what that does, it just brings a breadth and broad range of high quality miniatures to the shopper. And it's really, really important. Another sort of a sidebar of that is, what makes a really good show is, what is the offering of activities? Are there classes at these shows? Are there, what are the accommodations? What are the events that are happening around? And some other things kind of to do. Angela, where do I look? I'm going to go to Vegas. Vegas is I would call that an up and coming show. If you're only an hour away, go to the Vegas show. I think what is making the Vegas show, uh, you know, interesting is that they're really focusing in on this mini con concept, sort of making it more fun and bright, kind of like the Comic-Con concept. So if you're looking for fun, that the Las Vegas show is probably for you. There will be less high quality artisans, but you're going to be at a mini show. And I think sometimes the dopamine hit is just being around other miniaturists. You know what I mean? So check that out. I would say go if you're only an hour away, for sure. Okay, so Lori's got people that have talent to really make these things to the perfect scale. Like, how do they visualize the correct scale? Just blows my mind. Yeah, good comment. I mean, it's talent and skill, and it's amazing. It's amazing to see. The Met Show in Toronto. That's a good one. That's a good one. So as far as a good show, where do I look for room layout ideas based on Victorian history? Gosh, that's a loaded question. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Facebook community. So give me a second, and that might answer your question. So that talks about the shows, what defines a really good collection. I want to collect, or I want to continue collecting, or I want to bump up my mini game. What do I do? And this gets to that, what I was saying. As polarizing as Facebook is these days, it has a very strong miniature community of welcoming, supportive, safe spaces for groups that are centered around miniatures. I will call out the Guild community group, the World of Dollhouses miniatures. If you're not on Facebook, I would encourage you to check these groups out. They're great places to ask questions like, Where do I find good layouts for a Victorian room box? Um, so I would definitely check that out. They're great places to learn, great places to connect with other people who are like-minded. Like I said, this is a very social uh, category of hobby, and we're still, despite the fact that there's growth in this hobby, uh, uh, we're still very small, and we need each other. So definitely check Facebook out for sure. So what else is there in terms of good, great collections? I think balance. Not everything has to be perfect, perfect, perfect. Not everything has to be a super amazing artisan piece. I use the Target. Uh, I have a way of explaining this. Is it's like the Target method. You might have a closet filled with clothing, but not everything has to be Chanel. You can mix it up and have a black t-shirt from Target married up with a Chanel shoes. You know what I mean? And that's what makes a really good collection, is when you're mixing things up. Um, and so my point is, not everything has to be super expensive piece. So think about that when you're creating your collection. Um, and so, artists versus manufactured, but quality. And that's what's important. How something is made. It could be mass produced like a best pack piece, but as long as it sort of has a high number of those other really important things: sizing, proportion, detail, materials being used. A good collection is maintained in a really good environment. You want to make sure that that the temperature is controlled, that you have a lot of humidity, things like that. So that's really, really important. The other thing is, what else is really important in terms of, where do I start, is, you want to make sure that you enjoy the journey, that you take your time to amass your collection. You know what I mean? Enjoy the journey. That is my biggest point here. This is a social category. Meet other people, enjoy that sort of connection, attend shows and events, become members of groups for sure. Whether it's Facebook, whether it's the physical groups, IGMA, name, these are important components to learning and growing, and ultimately building upon your collections, because that's how we grow. We learn from each other. So very, very important. Lori, obsessing over flowers and pottery. Yes, absolutely. I think those are probably some of my favorite categories too. Linda is saying the Lakeland, Florida is a good show. Very nice. I know Linda is down in Florida. She was running the Guild show, and so I think she goes to that show. So that's interesting. Any other question? How do you expose your collections? What does that mean? How do I expose them? What does that mean, Goldie? How do I show them? How do I share them? I think if that's what you're asking, for sure. I have an Instagram account and Facebook, and that's probably where I show my collections most. Um, so in closing, what I would like to say is, just enjoy the whole thing. That's what it's about at the end of the day. And like I said, we're sort of so niche. And I guess what I say all the time is, like, it's kind of a blessing in a way that we even have this passion. Many people go through life not having a passion for anything. We have this passion for the tiny. And so it's a gift. And so what you do with it is your call. And these are some of the ways you can sort of step up your mini obsession, if you will, and enjoy that process. So, with that, I would say thank you for joining this little live stream. I hope you took away stuff from it. Please do continue to follow me and look for my Meet the Miniaturists. Check out my estate sale. I'm going to go ahead and plop again in the comments some of the important links. Please do check those out. And if you're looking to sell a collection, do reach out. I'm happy to chat with you, talk about all of your options. But thank you on this Thursday, and enjoy your Friday and the rest of your weekend. And thanks for spending time with me. All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.